Do you believe the polls, and can you commit today that you will respect the results of the election no matter the outcome?
Yes.
You believe the polls right now, and do you commit to recognizing the result of the election, whatever it is?
Jeez, of course.
Obviously, we would accept the results of the election. But in terms of the polls, we have a very recent example where many polls said that in Ontario, New Democrats would lose party status, and they formed official opposition.
Welcome back to Power Play. To believe the polls or not to, that's one of the questions of the day on the campaign trail after a group of Conservative supporters showed up to an Ontario rally last night donning shirts that read, and signs, I should say, "Do you believe the polls?" Those public opinion polls in the aggregate have certainly shown what was an easy win last year for the Tories has turned into an incredibly competitive race. The Conservative campaign says those signs and shirts are not party or campaign products, but what does it all tell us about the race? Let's bring in our special campaign edition of The Front Bench. Former BC Premier Christy Clark is with us. She's a senior advisor with Bennett Jones. Former federal Conservative cabinet minister and MP Monty Stolberg is here. He is the CEO of New West Public Affairs. And former NDP MP and BC Minister Nathan Cullen is with us here in studio. He's now a senior advisor at Strategy Corp. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Nice to see you today.
Hello.
Thanks for making the time. Nathan, you're in studio. I will begin with you. It's nice to have you here. Wish the other two were here as well. The fact that this is sort of part of the race right now, the ability to trust the polls or not, which I understand a healthy skepticism, but you know, last year when the Tories were leading by double digits, there was less skepticism shown. What do you think it says about the state of the race?
The poll is always in the eye of the beholder. It shows what the race has been, which is a dramatic change in just a few months. Major factors, of course, changing, which we've all covered. The presence of Mr. Trump, the absence of Mr. Trudeau, and the race has shuffled out. I would say to where the NDP's perspective is coming that Jagmeet's right to point to the most recent Ontario campaign. Predictions were based on the polls that the NDP would lose all these things, this leader would lose her seat, and the opposite happened. The reason that is because of the relatively focused campaign that they ran, I would say extra focused campaign they had, as well as overperforming. They might lose a region polling-wise, that's what the poll shows you, but they know how to target the seats. And talking to New Democrats across the country in the last few days, lawn sign numbers are way up, marks, and all of those, the data points that a campaign uses at the local level are, for our incumbents and for some target seats, showing really good results. And that's because in a seat, you can have that kind of showing and win the seat, but a poll will capture a dozen seats or an entire province or in some cases an entire country to try to figure out who's winning and who's not.
Just quickly to follow up on that, because provincially they lost their share of the vote. Like it decreased, but they had such great efficiency, as you said, because of the strategy that they employed. I have denoted, and I interviewed Anne McGrath on the show last night, who was pretty clear, like pivot isn't always a bad thing, that they are pivoting to focus on incumbents, to focus sort of at the local level more so than forming government, for example. Is that what they should be doing?
Oh, it should and are doing, and I think that's smart. I think the ability to, you don't pivot when it's all going great. And the questions of going to Mr. Poilievre, and you just had Corey on the show, of his inability to pivot and in fact double down on things that remind people of Donald Trump and obsessing over crowd sizes. That's weird, and Poilievre's got great discipline. I've always known Pierre to be a very disciplined and focused communicator, but he needed to pivot. As Corey said, the issues of Trump and the reflections of a Trump-style politic in Canada in the way that Mr. Poilievre talks about things, the way that he goes after the media, et cetera, I don't need to relitigate that, is why, part of the reason why that they have been losing, well, 25 points in the polls. So the NDP's ability to pivot, focus on what the offer is to Canadians, because we're now starting to get into the offer territory. What's the final ballot question going to be? What's the offer from New Democrats? And being able to hold a government to account as the fear of the Conservative forming government diminishes, which I think is happening. We're starting to see that soft Liberal vote, and will it start to move over in key ridings over to the NDP? And I think that's a pretty smart strategy.
Okay, Monty, I want to give you the chance to respond to part of what we did hear from Corey and what was on that podcast. Essentially, what Nathan laid out. We don't need to relitigate it. I'm sure you're familiar with his line of reasoning. Do you think he's right? Like, is essentially, was the reading of the room not, not done in time and not done to the full degree that it should have been?
Well, campaigns adjust all the time. Pierre's has been adjusting right from the very beginning, and as has every campaign. I don't think it's particularly helpful to go public and sort of do the autopsy on the body while we're still in the middle of the campaign. You know, the NDP and the Liberals love it when we do that. And it knocks the leader and his team, you know, off their message for a couple of days when we do that. So I just think we need to be a bit restrained and offer our advice privately and let, you know, the campaign decide what they're going to do based on what they're seeing. And there's a big difference between wish casting and forecasting on these things. You know, like, you know, I hear what Nathan's saying about, you know, how you're going to come up and pick up support because you've got lawn signs and this kind of thing out. The truth is, we're in the middle of a campaign. It's tight. The Conservatives have a great chance to get ahead, but we can't worry too much about precisely where the polls are at. What we need to do is be disciplined and consistent, stick to our message, and adjust as needed as we go.
All right, Christy, what do you think?
Well, I have a lot of time for both of these very smart people we're on here with Monty and Nathan, and obviously Corey tonight as well. But I tell you, I don't think the problem is that the Conservatives shouldn't believe the polls. I think it's that they're refusing to accept what the polling is telling them. And what the polling is telling them is that there are some fundamental weaknesses around Pierre Poilievre himself, the character of the man. And that's always been kind of the dark part of the campaign that they've got going. So yes, it's true. They failed to pivot to kind of being more current and speaking to the issues with the United States and tariffs. But when you think about women over 55, and I'm in that category, a lot of my friends are in that category, there've been, you don't meet many who have ever really been very comfortable with Pierre Poilievre. There's something about his kind of level of aggression, his refusal to adapt, his sense of self-confidence that I think leaves people feeling a little bit uncomfortable, because what we want are leaders who are stable and focused, but able to change their minds, able to listen to others, especially in chaotic times like this. And so, I mean, I've been a Liberal all my life. I thought the Conservatives were guaranteed to win this election. I thought, boy, even at the beginning, Kim Campbell, John Turner, both popped up in the polls and both of them lost. Mark Carney has turned out to be a totally different animal than most people ever gave him credit for. And Pierre Poilievre has turned out to be a lot more vulnerable than any of us ever gave him credit for.